Okay, hello everyone. We have already done with the 11th class of NCERT and we read about the Indian economy. We read about a different type of concepts like yeah, what is economy, right? And how this GDP is determined and what was the historical perspective of history of Indian economy, right? Right from the Indian economy, right from the independence or before independence, from the British era till independence and after independence, 1947 till reforms, right? We also discussed the era of the reforms, why was the need of the reforms, and thereafter, right? So we have already done this type of things, and then we have covered about the human capital and poverty, in employment, etc. So different type of chapters we have already covered, right? So this was all about the 11th class of NCERT. Now from today onwards, what we are going to do is the 12th class, right? So this is the very first chapter of the 12th class NCERT, and this chapter name is introduction, right? So in essence, this will be introducing to the concept of the macroeconomy, right? So what the difference between micro and macroeconomy is, right? What was the need of the macroeconomy? So these all are the things that we will be covering in this chapter, right? Okay, so in every economy, right? In every economy, so there are some broad questions, right? So you may have been every day, right? You may be going to market, right? In order to buy the clothes or buy vegetables or fruits, etc. So you must be going to the market and saying to the supplier, right? To the vendor that how much is the, right? Suppose we are going for the apples, right? And you may be going and the vendor may be saying 200 rupees per kg, suppose, right? You may be demanding, okay, no, I will be giving 180 rupees, right? But the vendor is saying 120. So both of you suppose agrees to 190 per kg and 190 per kg, and you buy it and seller sells it. So the price, this is the price which is agreed to, right? Agreed to by buyer as well as vendor, right? So this is the price of that commodity, right? Suppose what actually happens is, suppose there is some natural calamity and apples, the production of apples comes down, right? So if there is a low production of the apples, right, at that point of the time, what the vendor will say that we don't have much quantity, right? So I want the in order to get the better price to me, I want to sell apples at 300 per kg, right? Now the buyer will say, no, I want it at 200 rupees per kg or 180 per kg, right? 180 per kg. So vendor will always say no, right? He may not be giving to the buyer, right? So in that sense, the price discovery has not happened, right? The buyer has to go move up his price in order to buy that commodity, right? So demand this price, whatever the price that have been agreed to, it depends on the curve of demand and supply, right? Demand and supply. So wherever the demand and supply intersects, right? So wherever the buyer and seller intersect, right, the this is the same point where the price is discovered for a commodity, right? So this was all about the macroeconomy, right? Now moving to this macroeconomy principles, right? Moving to the principles of macroeconomy. So this all these decisions, right? How much to buy and at what price to buy, this was your decision, right? But there are some broad questions also in an economy, right? So will the price as a whole rise in the economy or not, or they will come down, right? So price as a whole we are talking about, right? We are not talking about only apples or bananas, right? We are talking about the price level in an economy, right? Okay, so there are some other conditions also, other questions that every nation must ask. It is about the employment condition. Will the employment in an economy go up or it will come down,
right? So what is the current state of employment in an economy, right? Is an economy, right, generating the employment or not, right? Okay, so which sector of the economy is doing better and which is not performing, right? So that government can emphasize on that sector, and it can turn the fortunes of that sector, right? So these are the some of the issues, some of the problems, right? Some of the questions that every nation must ask. Another important question is indicators. So what are the different indicators that can measure the performance of the economy, right? Is my economy doing better or not? Through which indicators should I be able to find it out, right? So these are the some of the things, right? Some of the questions that may not be answered by the microeconomy, right? So if I am going for the for buying apples, clothes, or any other, so I will not be concerned about the employment, right? How much employment is this shop generating or not, right? And leave the concept of shop. अगर हम ये देखें कि पूरे देश में कितना एम्प्लॉयमेंट बढ़ रहा है, राइट? सो इफ वी गो फॉर द कंट्री लेवल, सो वी नॉट बी एबल टू फाइंड इट. So this is the issues. These are the some of the issues that are faced when we study the economics as a whole. So what have been the method solution to these things, right? I can't go and ask every person, right? Ask every individual in India that whether you are employed or not, right? If I can go and reach to every person, I will be able to count how many people are employed and unemployed, right? तो वो तो मैं कर सकता हूँ, बट रीचिंग टू एवरी पर्सन, ठीक है, हर एक पर्सन के पास जाके पूछना, इट विल नॉट बी पॉसिबल फॉर मी, राइट? सो what economist has suggested to use some simple variables, like simple variables, right? अब ये क्या चीज है, right? Now every person, you may be knowing that when we talk about the microeconomics, right? So I am concerned about the price, right? And if I will go for the employment, okay, I will go to measure the employment. तो केवल मैं employment से concerned करूंगा. I will not be concerned about the what is the price that is going on in the economy. Are you able to get it? So in that sense, this concept of price and employment is are two different things, right? For you or me or for any other decision person, right? Person who is taking decision. But if we are able to find out one interlinkage between the prices and employment, right? How they link with each other, right? If we are able to find how they are dependent, right? Price, employment, right? And any other things, and then we are able to measure it with the variable, some simple variable, then we will be able to measure these quantities throughout the country, right? So you may not be able to again get the concept, but let me simplify it further, right? Suppose there is single good, ठीक है, but if we are able to get a representative out of it, right? Right suppose there is agriculture, there is agriculture sector, right? Agriculture sector has many things, right? It may be having tractors, right? It may be having some cultivators, suppose, ठीक है, and it may be having some other machinery, right? It may be pump set, etc., right? So I'm not I will not be able to gain everything, right? If I will go, how many measures tractors are there, how many cultivators are there? I may not be able to gain the concept of it, right? I may not be able to get the numbers of all those things. But if I quantify everything into a single simplified variable, that is agriculture goods, right? Within agriculture goods, everything is included, and if I able to count this agriculture goods, so my task is done, right? So agriculture goods is very simple variable, right? So everything that is covered in the agriculture has in the machinery of agriculture has come into this agriculture goods, and this is how we simplify, we try to simplify everything, and we are able to measure this simplified things, right? So this is what I was talking about, right? Okay, so but what actually has happened in this simplification? What are some of the issues are coming up, right? Some like it overlooks the micro things, right? If there is a tractor, suppose I went for agriculture goods, right? Agriculture goods, there may be different type of tractors, right? A tractor may be some of higher load, right? Higher load, or it may be some lower load. So there are different things, micro level things, but we overlooks this in the simplification. You can take the example of labor also, right? A person who is giving the labor, he may be at the manager level, right? He may be at the manager level, but he may be daily earner, daily wage earner, right? So we are what in the process of simplification, we have simplified it to labor, what, right? But within the labor, how all those things are varying, we are not concerned about it, right? So this is what is the problem of simplification, right? But we have to go for some simplification in order to know the things in the economy, right? Okay, so very important concept first, right? So we will discuss some concepts, then we will be knowing that it will be easy for us to understand the chapter. What are the different economic agents, right? Economic agent, what is the concept of economic agents? These economic agents are the people, right? They may be people, they may be government, right? They may be businesses, right? So all those people, business, or the government who are taking the decisions, right? Decisions, or better to say economic decisions, right? Economic decisions. So those people will call as economic agents, right? So those are the agents who are taking economic decisions for another person, right? So if you go to the market and try to buy apples, right? Apples, suppose there are two qualities of apples. One is at 200 per kg and another is at 350 per kg, right? And this is, now you are a decision maker, right? Now you are an economic agent in that capacity to decide whether to buy this one, that 200 per kg one, or the 350 per kg one, right? So this at that point of the time you are an economic agent, right? Similarly an economy, a government may be the economic agent. How the government may be deciding how to invest, right? How to invest its money in what sector, right? Whether should it go for the road, rail, or it may be going for the airport, right? So economic agent, government works as an economic agent at that point of the time, right? Okay, another example you can take as an of an vendor or producer, right? Producer. So producer is a person who produces some things, right? Some goods, but he may be deciding what good to produce, right? What goods to produce, right? So he will be deciding based on the market condition, right? So if he is able to sell one type of good, so he will be more inclined to supply or create more product or more goods of that quality which he is able to sell in the market, right? So that is why this producer will be an economic agent at that point of the time, right? So this is the concept of economic agents. Okay, so now you must be understanding the person, the very first person who studies this subject of economics. He was Adam Smith, right? And in his book in 1976, sorry, 1776, he wrote about the economics, right? Economics, and that is why he is called as father of economics throughout the world, right? So that is why this person becomes important, right? And what was the concept that this person was giving? He was saying about the market led economy, right? Market led economy. So he was saying that everything that is produced, if market is able to find the buyers for it, right, then only the goods will be produced, right? The producer will be inclined to produce that good only if the market is able to sell it, right? If there is no customer in the market, producer will not be inclined to produce it, and there will be no production of that thing, right? So in that sense he was only talking about the market, right? If market is good, then Adam Smith's theory is better, right? But what actually has happened, there will be different things that we will be talking about later in the chapter, right? Another important person is, and or economist is, John M. Keynes, right? And he was a person who came to the picture in 1936 by writing his book, right? And he talked about the employment, right? Prices, general prices, right? So these are the things that he was talking about, right? So what he was mainly talking about was, and
Economic.
macroeconomic variables, right? uh, those things that we recently talked about, right? He simplified every he used simple variables, right? He used simple variables in order to quantify the bigger challenges, bigger questions, right? And he was able to answer some of them, right? So in that sense, John M. Keynes was different from the Adam Smith, right? So Adam Smith was mainly talking about the microeconomy, right? So he was saying that decision makers are individuals, and those decision makers will be able to drive the market if they are saying that okay, product is good, so they will be able to buy that good, and producer will be able to take the decision to produce that good, and right. Only he was only talking about the market led economy, right? Now, coming back to our things, right? These were the important things, basic things that you should be able to remember, right? Now, coming back to the things, what are the different problems? I am always or already talking about the microeconomy. What are different things? But what is microeconomy? What is macroeconomy? Right. So this is the important question that must be coming into your mind, right? So this is the different, very simplified chart, right? Table from which you may be able to get the concept of a micro versus macroeconomy, right? Microeconomy versus macroeconomy, right? So in microeconomy, we are the decision makers, right? The economic decision makers or economic agents remain the same for all, right? No, no, sorry. This economic agents will be different, but the fundamental question of what to produce, right, in an economy will be taken up by different things in a different manner, right? In the microeconomy, small things are focused upon, right? So what is the price of a single kg of apple, or maybe bananas, or any other things, or clothes, etc., right? So small things will be talked about. But in macroeconomy, large or unquantifiable data, right, data which is not available with any person, right, is talked about, right? Suppose this may be about employment, right? Will a single person or single state government will be able to know the employment level within India or not? Right? No, the single person or single state government will not be able to get it, right? So we are mostly concerned about the large number of variables, right, in the macro economy, right? Okay, who are the decision makers or the economic agents? Economic agents remains the individuals here, right? So when we are going for the buying apples or clothes, we are the decision makers at that point of the time, right? But in the macro economy, who are the economic agents? The collective people, all those people becomes the economic agents, right? So what all those things, all those problems which will be concentrated about the collective, means all the people, right? Throughout the public, this will be the most concentrated things in macroeconomy, right? Suppose employment, right? Employment employment affects every person or touches every person, right? So a person who is going for the bank, who wants the job in the bank, will be also be covered in the macroeconomy. A person who wants job in government sector or the private sector, right? So every person is connected through the macroeconomy, right? Okay, in the microeconomy, person works in the self-interest, right? If he wants, suppose bananas, and bananas are available at a higher price, right? But if he wants the bananas, then he will be buying that in the higher price only, right? If but in the macroeconomy, public interest comes into the picture, right? So if the government, if there is a lower level of employment, if employment is lower in an economy, so what government will try? Government will try to generate some employment level of work, right? So that it can provide employment to the public, and then public interest functions right here, right? Public interest comes into picture here. Okay, so in the microeconomy, market led things always come up, right? Market, or it will be dependent on the curve of demand and supply, right? So wherever the demand and supply will come intersect, this will be the point where this price of an economic commodity will be decided, right? So that decision comes in the market only. But in the concept of macroeconomy, right? So government or regulatory agencies decides everything, right? So market doesn't decide. These are economic agents which decide, right? So market may or may not be able to decide those prices, right? So suppose employment is there, right? So employment, the market will not be able to decide whether to give this person employment or not, right? So government will be able to decide, okay, we need to generate employment even if a person who is unskilled, right, unskilled, he will be able to get the job, right? Suppose take the case of the manrega, right? Manrega, people were unskilled in the rural areas, right? So government decided, okay, we will be launching a scheme Manrega, and we will be providing the jobs to the rural unskilled people, right? So government has decided it, right? Market was not there. So that is what is the concept of macroeconomy, right? Okay, so in the microeconomy, demand and supply curves comes into the picture, but in the macroeconomy, policies of the government or the regulatory agencies or the acts, right, acts or the rules, regulations comes into the picture, right? So this is the difference between the macro and microeconomy, right? So now you have have understood the concept of different micro and macroeconomy. So about coming back to the Mr. Adam Smith, whatever is written here, he launched a book called as an inquiry into nature and cause of the wealth of nations in 1976, right? So how the wealth is generated, right? He was already concentrated over the wealth, right? How a nation generates wealth in an economy. And because he was in 1776, he was more concentrated on capitalist economy, right? Capitalist or market led economy, right? Market led economy. So he was mostly concerned about the market, right? When the market will exist, the goods will be produced, right? Okay, so Adam Smith was talking about the classical tradition, right? So whatever the concept, the market-led economy concept that was given by Mr. Adam Smith, that we call it as classical economics, right? Classical, right? Okay, so he was saying, if market is there, right? Market will determine the employment, and this every person will get the employment in a free market, right? In a free market, every person will get the employment, right? According to him, this was the condition. If there is a market led economy, right, so factories will be working at its full capacity, right? Full capacity, right? So if the factories are working at a full capacity, they will be employing maximum number of people, and there will not be a question of unemployment, right? Unemployment will not be there in the economy, right? This was the concept that was given by the Adam Smith, right? So but what actually has happened in 1928, 1928 or 29, 29 to be precise, 1929, Great Depression happens, right? Great Depression happens, and in the US, in USA, America, unemployment reached to 25%, right? So out of every 100%, 25% were unemployed, right? Unemployment reached to 25%. Output, the factory output decreased by 33%. right? So factories were not, that means factories were not producing at their full capacity, right? And all those factories started to shut down, right? So many of the factories started to shut down, and if the factory will start to shut down, the employment and output will decrease further, right? So this was happening in Great Depression. So according to the Adam Smith, if we go with the concept of Adam Smith, wasn't market were there, market and free market was also there, right? In even in the Great Depression period, free market was already existing, right? But still the employment was higher, the output factories were not functioning at their full capacity, so there must be some problems in it, right? And then the concept of then the came the person named John Maynard Keynes, ठीक है? So John M. Keynes, he was the father of macroeconomics, and he then went to go ahead with the concept of macroeconomy, right? What he was saying, he was challenging Adam Smith, right? He was challenging Adam Smith and his concept of microeconomy, and then he was coming to a different concept of macroeconomy. So he professed a concept of macroeconomy then, right? Okay, this was a story, right? I hope you got it now. Okay, emergence of macroeconomy. Macroeconomy was a concept was given by the John M. Keynes, and he was writing in his book General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money in 1936, and through it he proposed the concept of macroeconomy, right? Okay. Now, moving to the present book of macroeconomics, right? So now this concept of microeconomy, what is the difference? We were talking about that. Now the real things will come into the picture, right? So these are the some of the things that I have already created from the those things, right? That has been given, the paragraph, big paragraph that has been given here, and these are the things that is coming to. These are the some of the gist of all those things, right? You can take a picture, right? Take a screenshot of it and then save it for the later, right? Okay, so there are two types of economies, right? A capitalist economy or a socialist economy, right? In a capitalist economy, right, or for an economy in general, right? For an economy in general, let's see, there are four factors of production, right? So any production that has to be taken up, right? If raw material is there, and this has to be produced or produced in a factory, right? And we need to get a good out of it, goods, right, or product out of it, right? So everything that has been converted into the product, right? So there will be factors of production, right? So until and unless all those factors of production are not available, so goods cannot be produced, right? So what are the different factors of production? Land, right? So if the land will not be available, so right, so where the production will take up, right? Even if you are talking about the online activities also need the land, right? In order to provide internet, right? In the person who is providing his services, he must be sitting on a land, right? He must be taking in the loan, so the house on a rent, or maybe he may be going to the office space, right? So for setting up a factory, office, or any other things, land will be required, right? Labor will be required, right? Labor, a person who is providing his services, right? Will be the labor, right? Laborers may be manual laborers, right? Or they may be some skilled laborers, like skilled persons who will be providing their services, right? So labor will be required, capital will be required in order to generate some goods, right? So without capital, raw material cannot be bought, right? So in order to buy the raw material, the capital will be required, right? in order to in order to pay, right, in order to give the wages, capital will be required, right? So this is the concept of capital, right? Okay, right. Okay, so and the foremost and the one of the most important thing will be entrepreneur, right? A person who puts his capital, or who is the decision maker. So a person will be coming up in order to set up a industry, right? A firm. So a firm will be set up by this person, entrepreneur. Until and unless this entrepreneur is not there, right, all those things like land, labor and capital will be remaining idle, right? They will not be put into use, right, till the point a person comes and decides, okay, we want to produce this thing, and these are the things, right, I want to do, right? So this person in effect is also a person who comes with an idea, right, of product, right? Now these all things, one two three four, that is land, labor, capital and entrepreneur, all these things are the factors of the production. Till that all those things are not available, production will not take place, right? Now moving to the things, right? Suppose this production has happened and goods are being sold, right, in the market. So this entrepreneur will be generating the profits, right? Profits, or maybe you can call it, if a good is produced, right? Okay, let me take it to another things, right? Suppose a good is produced. So goods are produced and they will be sold in the market and revenue will be generated, right? Revenue will be generated, right? Whatever the quantities the goods have been sold, the price that has been sold, this will be called as revenue. And from this revenue, this person, employer, right, will be giving salaries also, right? He will be distributing it to the factors of production, right? So how this revenue will be generated, distributed, right? So land, whatever the land he has taken, the entrepreneur has taken the land, on that land he must be giving some rent, right? Rent. For the laborers, he will be giving some salaries, right? Wages we can call it, right? And for the capital he must be paying some rate of interest, right? Interest, right? So he must be paying some interest for the capital, for the using of capital. And entrepreneur himself will be getting the profits, right? So all those revenues that has been generated, right, that will be distributed within the factors of the production, and then profits will be generated, and that profits, those profits then can be utilized, right, again, right, again it can be spent, sorry, invested, right? Investment expenditure, it is called as investment expenditure. And that profit then can be utilized again back into the into gaining more factors of the production. He may buy more land, he may use additional labor, right, or he may use additional capital, right, and put additional interest on it, give additional interest on it, and bring more production into the picture, right? So he may produce more goods using that profit, right? So this is how every model or every economic things or every economic activity uh, is run, right? Now from the natural resources, goods are produced in the factories through this, right? Okay, now if we go for the capitalistic country, what the different there are three conditions for a capitalist country. The private ownership of this, right, private ownership of land, private ownership of production, factors of the production will be there in a capitalist country, right? Market led determination of prices will be there, right? So prices will be discovered in the market, right? And wage labor will be the thing, right? Wage labor in the sense, the whatever the production will be taking place will be taking by distributing the labor to the all the
Factors of production, right?
So if these three conditions are met, then the we call as a country, we call it as a capitalist country. An example of USA, right? America, right? Or European countries, right? European countries, you may call it as Britain or France or Germany for that for that for an example, right? So this is how a
World, right? We'll see all the countries in the world, right? So not every country is capitalist, right? So if a country is there, suppose right, if a country of tribal dominated people is there, right, but tribal people, they work among themselves, they don't get a wage out of it, out of their employment, right? So in that sense, that economic activity or that nation may not be called as capitalist economy, right? Okay, so now coming to the next part, next topic, that is the sectors of the economy, right? So different sectors of economy are there, right? So factors of production we have already seen; those were already the factors.
right? Those were related to the production activity, right? So if we are going for production, or we are able to generate a good out of the raw materials within a factory, that factors of production will come into the picture, right? But every nation, every economy can be divided into four sectors, right? For our analysis of macroeconomy, right? So macroeconomy की कैसे ये sectors काम करेंगे, we will be seeing it later. But how and what are the different sectors of economy, we should be knowing it, right? तो sectors of economy, अगर आप economy को divide कर दें, right, economy को you are able to divide, then what will happen is you will find that there is a private sector, there is a private sector. Or private sector में you can talk about the capitalist people, you can talk about those firms, those corporations which are working in their individual or private capacity, right? तो वो private sector का part होगा, right? Now outside this there will always be a government, ठीक है? गवर्नमेंट, तो प्राइवेट सेक्टर अपना प्राइवेट प्रोडक्शन करता है, राइट, प्रोवाइड दे विल डू देयर प्राइवेट प्रोडक्शन, बट गवर्नमेंट आल्सो डज सम प्रोडक्शन, राइट? तो ये प्रोडक्शन क्या कौन से करते हैं? सपोज टेक द एग्जांपल ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर यूनिट्स, राइट, पब्लिक सेक्टर यूनिट्स, पब्लिक सेक्टर बैंक्स, राइट? सो दे आर नॉट प्राइवेट ओन्ड, they are government owned, but they are also doing some production, they are providing their services, right?
केवल
प्राइवेट सेक्टर ही नहीं होता है, इकोनॉमिक गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर भी होता है, राइट? नाउ मूविंग टू द थर्ड सेक्टर विल बी हाउस होल्ड सेक्टर, right? Household sector is also a decision maker or economic agent in an economy, right? Suppose what quantity what quantity of what good to be produced, right? What quantity of what good to be produced, oh sorry, to, right, what quantity of what good to be bought, it is decided by the household, right? How it's capital to the capital to the private players, right? It also provide capital to the government also. If the government takes it as a loan, then provide capital is provided by the household sector. So in that sense, the household also works as an economic agent, and this is also a different important sector of an economy, right? And the fourth and the last will be the external sector, right? Not every production that is taking place will be consumed within the domestic territory, ठीक है? तो हम दूसरे देशों से भी अपना ट्रेड करेंगे, राइट? सो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज एक्सटर्नल सेक्टर, ठीक है? एक्सटर्नल सेक्टर भी इन्फ्लुएंस करता है, राइट? इफ देयर इज अ डिमांड फॉर एप्पल्स इन अमेरिका, राइट, बट in India there is no demand, right? Suppose, right? So it will be a important decision or a very logical decision to export apples from India to America, where they can find better prices, right? So this is the concept of external sector. So external sector में we import some of the goods, we export some of the goods, right? And we the capital also comes into the play, right? तो capital या तो बाहर जाके लगेगी, राइट? कैपिटल में भी रिक्वायर्ड, राइट? तो कैपिटल इन द सेंस इन्वेस्टमेंट, तो इन्वेस्टमेंट कैन बी डन एज आउटसाइड इंडिया, ठीक है? और इन्वेस्ट में बी कमिंग इनटू इंडिया, ठीक है? सो यू मे हैव रेड अबाउट द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ एफडीआई, फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट, ठीक है? तो राइट, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज capital, and that comes from external environment, that is outside the India, right? So these are the four sectors of the economy. Every economy will have these four sectors, right? How these will be used, दैट वी विल बी डिस्कस इन द नेक्स्ट चैप्टर, ठीक है। जब हम जीडीपी के बारे में पढ़ेंगे तो ये चीज दोबारा से काम में आएगी, राइट। सो दिस वाज ऑल अबाउट दिस चैप्टर, दैट इज इंट्रोडक्शन। आई होप यू लाइक इट, ठीक है। तो ये पीडीएफ यू विल बी एबल टू फाइंड इट इन द लिंक दैट इज बीन गिवन इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन, ठीक है। तो ये आप हमारे ऐप पर दिस पीडीएफ इज ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल, ठीक है। तो यही पीडीएफ नहीं, केवल नोट्स भी अवेलेबल है, ठीक है। नोट्स एज वेल एज टेस्ट, राइट। तो एवरी chapter wise test is available in the app. You can always download and attempt those tests, ठीक है। ठीक है, thank you all, meet you again in the next chapter, ठीक है। There is chapter second of this Indian economy of class 12th, and there we will taking further building our concepts from there, right? Till that point of the time, keep revising, reading, and excelling in your preparation, right? Thank you all, thank you very much.